How's it going, everyone? It's time for a very special edition of Fight in Focus. And we are talking all about Ring of Honor SuperCard of Honor with, I'm not even going to color things up here. He's the head honcho, Ring of Honor, AEW, Mr. Tony Khan. Tony, thanks for hopping on Fight in Focus. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, John. Thanks for talking to me today. It's nice to see you.
It's great to see you as well. This is kind of the Super Bowl week of pro wrestling, as SuperCard of Honor is going down this coming Friday in Los Angeles. You'll be able to see it right here on FITE. And this kind of feels like a big year-long culmination for you, Tony. It was just a little over a year ago that you announced the official purchase of Ring of Honor. Is Ring of Honor right now where you kind of envisioned it would be? And if not, how so?
We are ahead of where I anticipated being. We've relaunched the streaming service and have more subscribers than ever before in Ring of Honor's history. And we're having a great pay-per-view business. We had the biggest pay-per-view year in Ring of Honor's history just on the 3 shows we did. And now we're looking at my 4th pay-per-view since I took over Ring of Honor. This is the 1-year anniversary of our first show, which was a bit of a strange show. It's very different. I'm not trying to compare it to the scope or the impact that it had on the industry, or what an important night it was in terms of setting the stage for what later became, I think, a great opportunity to bring wrestling back almost 20 years later to TNT and over 20 years later to TBS with AEW. But I would compare in some ways last year's SuperCard of Honor was a transition show, and it was a handover show. I took over in the lead up to that show, and it was a bit of a strange thing. It's probably one of the first times in wrestling since Club La Vela, which was the comparison I was setting up, that you've had the new owner and the team come in and take over the show. This was a little different because I had put my own wrestlers and a lot of my own plans and card in. So last year I felt like I really enjoyed doing SuperCard of Honor. And it was a bit of a new thing, running a new company and getting to know a lot of people. It was the first night I worked with a lot of new faces. But we had a great time, and it was very successful. Then Death Before Dishonor, Final Battle, great shows. And we've continued to build this momentum for the relaunch of Ring of Honor Weekly TV. And now we're going into our 5th episode of the Weekly TV as the go-home for this pay-per-view. And the excitement about the weekly shows is so high. I think all the shows have been great. There's great matches on every show we've done so far. And I'm really having fun with it. I was talking actually to Kenny Omega about this the other day, and I was saying I really feel like I feel more invigorated. I feel better than I have probably since we started, because I love doing Ring of Honor and AEW. It takes so much of the pressure off, and people thought it would put more pressure on. But I love being able to do some of the things you can't do with AEW. There's no commercials. There's no time restrictions and content restrictions, and I can really just go wild with it. And it reminds me in a lot of ways of the dynamites I wrote in a notebook long before there was an AEW, or before I had to deal with the realities of commercial breaks and showtime durations and segments and stuff like that. And just being able to do weekly shows, and also it's really fun the way we've done them. I really enjoyed the tapings, and being able to have everyone under one roof and get everything done, where you don't have people getting injured or travel problems or people getting sick. You just get everything shot. And I mean, you could have an injury on a taping when you tape weeks of TV, but at the same time,
Right.
That could happen throughout the week. So I've just really enjoyed it. It's completely different than AEW, but it's a great compliment. And I think that's what I really wanted Ring of Honor to come back as a complimentary promotion where there's definitely an audience for it.
I'm so glad that you brought up that point, because that's actually what I was going to ask you next. Back when Ring of Honor started, it really was the true alternative. You had your sports entertainment products, you had lower level indies that weren't getting a lot of attention, but Ring of Honor was created to be the wrestling product. In today's wrestling realm, Tony, there are so many organizations at a high level that fulfill that need. So what does Ring of Honor do in today's wrestling space? What is its purpose, in your opinion?
Wrestling for the hardcore fan, where you don't have me trying to book for ratings ever and really trying to provide something I know that the hardcore fans will love. I said it at the Scrum following Revolution, which I think is one of AEW's best events we've ever done. And now we're going into SuperCard, which I think can be one of the best events Ring of Honor's ever done. And to make the comparison, I was saying, look, I think the hardcore wrestling fans in many ways are very like-minded. You're not going to agree on 100% ever with anybody on anything, but I do feel like somewhere between 80, maybe even over 90%, but definitely in that range where it's a vast majority of the decisions, the vast majority of the matches, the stories. There's a lot of alignment among the hardcore fans about what is good and what's bad. And I think one of the really exciting things about this Ring of Honor is we're not trying to appeal necessarily to a wider audience. I'm very, very accepting and aware of who the product is for, because AEW, we're appealing to a huge audience on TBS and TNT and trying to do the best shows. And I'm trying to do hardcore wrestling for a wider audience and to make more hardcores. For Ring of Honor, I really believe that you have to be a pretty dedicated wrestling fan. And that's one of the reasons that Ring of Honor was a challenging business, where I was able to get a really good deal on the acquisition. And now I feel like Ring of Honor is a perfect complement to a company like AEW, where we have a great roster and there's a great chance to be able to utilize people. And I'm just so excited for this event. I think people are really excited to see Eddie Kingston versus Claudio Castagnoli for the world title, Samoa Joe versus Mark Briscoe for the world TV title, to see that match, the history between Samoa Joe and the Briscoes, and to be able to explore it and do long video packages, long form stories, and not have to worry about the minute by minute ratings or when do we need to go to commercial. These are very real concerns, and they are important, because the most important thing for the wrestling show is the livelihood of everyone involved with it. And to be able to provide for everyone that works for AEW, we have to fit the show in a format with commercial breaks, content restrictions, and also knowing that, hey, maybe I can't show a 5-minute video package on Dynamite because it might start to lose the audience. Whereas in Ring of Honor, everybody's there. They're strapped down to watch this show and they're excited about it. And I think there's so much to be excited about on this one event. And coming out of this week's show, I think the excitement for Ring of Honor, now that we're 1 year in officially, it's the highest it's been, and it's continued to build and build. So I think it bodes really well. The reception we've had to the new weekly series and all the pay-per-views we've done have been very positively received. I feel like we're 3 for 3, and I have never felt more confident about an abilities event to deliver to its target audience than I do about SuperCard of Honor this Friday night on pay-per-view. Available here on FITE, on Bleacher Report, a lot of great services, but here on FITE, certainly service the hardcore wrestling fans. And I know there's a lot of power users on FITE who have watched Ring of Honor for many years that will be excited about it. And so far, the reception to the Ring of Honor relaunch from its target base, which is the hardcore wrestling fan, has been overwhelmingly positive.
Got a couple more minutes here with Ring of Honor owner Tony Khan. Man, you've been smacking wrestling fans over the head with some crazy match announcements in the past few weeks. Quite a bit of discourse surrounding some of them too. Io Del Vikingo showing up on AEW, and then now part of this card, we saw Commander show up on AEW, part of this card, the two of them going at it. I'd love to know real quick your ideology behind how you're introducing these talent to this audience and integrating it into what we'll be seeing on the pay-per-view this week.
Well, I think we've introduced all these wrestlers either through AEW or Ring of Honor to a wider audience. Many of these wrestlers have wrestled on national television, international television on AEW. And we have a great crew here that I think represents the best roster Ring of Honor's ever had, while we're still featuring such a strong roster in AEW. We just came off an awesome rating and an awesome episode of the show. And I think whenever you can do a good number and have a great TV show, you have to feel really good. That's the goal in AEW. We judge Ring of Honor a little differently because it's subscription based and the subscribers are at an all-time high. So for both companies, we're having great success right now. And international, AEW, we've never had better success internationally, and we're starting to do more international events. We'll have many more international events this year than ever before in any year. And for Ring of Honor also, having a great audience overseas on a service here like FITE, it is very helpful. We have streaming subscribers all over the world now to the weekly Ring of Honor TV show, but also now we're going to have pay-per-view buyers from all over the world this Friday for Death Before Dishonor, or excuse me, for a SuperCard of Honor. And we set a record, Freudian slip, for Death Before Dishonor last year for pay-per-view buys for Ring of Honor for a standalone event, the biggest pay-per-view Ring of Honor has ever done on their own, not including when they worked with New Japan on that event. But frankly, even that event, the way it was monetized and the way it was serviced, this was a bigger pay-per-view and a more lucrative pay-per-view. So I do think the reception we've had in the event, it's been great for the business. But if you love wrestling, then it's not really all about the dollars and cents. I always say to top TV executives, wrestling fans are incredible. There's no other subsection of sports fandom or really even TV fandom that's so widespread, that has such a vast knowledge base of TV ratings, share points, demographics, and the way the industry works. Wrestling fans are amazing. And Ring of Honor, it's a different business model. And it's one that's working really well. And again, it's a great promotion for me to own, because as the owner of AEW and the owner of Ring of Honor, everyone knows I love great wrestling matches. And the promotions are very complementary. I feel like it's given me even more capacity to service the wrestling fans. And there's certainly a crossover between the AEW fans and the Ring of Honor fans. AEW has a much bigger, wider base due to the television and the partnership with Warner Brothers Discovery, which is great for wrestling fans all over the world. I think Ring of Honor had a good business, but it's really what the industry was missing was a strong challenger promotion like AEW that has that worldwide TV penetration. Now we've been able to relaunch Ring of Honor, in my opinion, in the opinion of a lot of fans, better than it's ever been before, as a complementary promotion, not taking a back seat to AEW, just operating in a very different business model, and two promotions that, again, they complement each other. They work very well. And I think both companies have really strong rosters. And as I've been known to do, I will open that forbidden door, put people through it, bring them back. And it gives a lot of opportunities. In Ring of Honor, also working with international promotions, utilizing some of the relationships I built over the years, like with AAA, the Lucha Libre stars coming in, and with New Japan Pro Wrestling, which, look, those two companies wouldn't do anything together unless I was involved. So I do think that also speaks to the power of AEW and Ring of Honor, and what I've been able to do in pro wrestling, bringing parties together that won't work together necessarily, but will both work with me. And I'm very proud of that. And they're both great partners for me in a lot of ways, even though they hate each other.
Tony, I could yuck it up with you for hours, but I know you're at the NFL meetings. You got to go, but I just want to ask you real quick here. Again,
This
SuperCard
is
of
my
Honor
lunch
Friday.
breaker. I would stay all day. I would love to hang out with
Well, I
you.
appreciate you taking the time to cook with me here on Fight and Focus. But if I could just ask you, this is Friday night. We're talking fight. We're talking SuperCard of Honor. How do you feel this year's SuperCard of Honor will honor the legacy of this great pay-per-view of Ring of Honor's past, while also building towards this product that you're continuing to push, hopefully, for years to come here?
The most important legacy that I honor, and it's not just this one night, it's going to be something we'll always do, is the late, great Jay Briscoe, who's a huge part of Ring of Honor. And when I bought Ring of Honor, he was one of the promotional focus main pieces, along with his brother, Mark Briscoe. And this will be the first Ring of Honor event I've done without Jamin. And he's somebody I really liked, and I got to know in the past year working beside him. I'd never worked with him before I bought Ring of Honor. It's one of the reasons I'm so happy and felt blessed that I did this, to get to know him and work with him. And I just want to make sure that we spread that love. So the Jay Briscoe Reach for the Sky ladder match on Friday night at SuperCard, I'm so excited for that. I'm so excited for Mark Briscoe challenging Samoa Joe. Mark Briscoe has never beaten Samoa Joe. And the Briscoes have had a lot of matches and a long rivalry with Samoa Joe. And there's only one win they've ever had. And it was a very famous Samoa Joe versus Jay Briscoe match that we've shown video of. But Mark Briscoe has never beaten Samoa Joe. Mark Briscoe has lost every time he's ever challenged for the world television title. and it would mean so much to the family. It would be such a great victory for the Briscoes, and certainly so much to look forward to on the pay-per-view, but a lot related to the Briscoe family and the importance of their legacy in AEW, and in particular, the late, great Jay Briscoe. So much to look forward to on the show, but in honoring the legacy of Ring of Honor, you have to honor the legacy of the Briscoes. And that's something important to the show. We'll have a lot of great action. So much to look forward to. Claudio versus Eddie, Shibata versus Yuta. Shibata is one of the most inspirational stories in wrestling himself. And I'm so excited for the show. Of course, we'll have this great match coming up on Ring of Honor streaming with Athena versus Emi Sakura. And after that, we will announce what the championship match for the women's title match is. But I think it's also very important for our streaming subscribers to have a great championship match on Thursday night to look forward to. So the go-home show is going to be very exciting, high stakes, and really big week. Big week for Ring of Honor. Big week for AEW with the launch of All Access and the return of Adam Cole. These huge Kenny versus Cobb, speaking of the Forbidden Door being opened. So for both promotions, it's a very exciting time. And I really appreciate you having me on to talk about it, in particular as we go into SuperCard of Honor. Thanks for having me on with you on FITE today, John.
Tony Khan, we appreciate your time right here on Fight and Focus. SuperCard of Honor coming your way this Friday night. Tony Khan, thank you for your time.
Thanks, John. Great to see you, man.